Hey, what's up guys? Joker here, and I hope you're all doing well. Today I wanted to talk to you about Halo Infinite, which has kind of come under fire over the past week or so, ever since the big gameplay premiere on July 23rd during the Microsoft event. And I have a theory as to why the graphics on this game are so bad, even though 343 is kind of dancing around the subject. They've issued a statement on, why the graphics look the way they do, and since then they've confirmed that the game is actually going to be free to play when it comes for the multiplayer, which I think spells disaster for a whole plethora of other reasons. But I have a theory as to why the graphics are the way that they are, and it's actually something that's kind of out there in the open right now thanks to a statement from 343, so it might be sitting just under everyone's noses. So today we're going to talk about that. But first, today's video is brought to you by MMORC.com, where you could save money on games for all of your favorite platforms, as well as software like Windows 10 Pro, which you can get for just $15, as well as Office 2019 Pro and Office 365. And if you act right now, you can get an additional 27% off with my code JOK27 at checkout, and that'll knock the price down on Windows 10 Pro from $15.29 all the way down to $11.16. And of course, they accept a wide variety of payment from PayPal to credit cards to Bitcoin. So be sure to act now and hit up the links down in the description below. So the gameplay premiere demo that was showed off is about 8 minutes long. You'll be seeing it playing in the background right now. That was published on July 23rd, 2020. It was met with a lot of disdain, but also, a lot of Halo hardcore fans are, still enjoying it because, well, they're Halo fanboys. They're going to like it no matter what. Currently has 30,000 dislikes, 157,000 likes. So obviously more people are liking it than disliking it, but there's definitely a significant portion of the community that is not happy with this game, and the vast majority of that is centered solely around the visual aesthetic and the graphics of the game. I don't really think it has a whole lot to do with the gameplay. I mean, we're pretty much just seeing single player here, and from what I've seen, it pretty much looks like Halo with a grappling hook, so that's more or less what we're getting here. I really don't have any issues with the gameplay, but the visuals, I think, are undeniably ass. They look pretty fucking bad. Like, they look somewhere between one of the Halo games on the Xbox 360 and Halo 5 Guardians. I think it looks somewhere in between there, and that's just really not what you would expect on one of the upcoming generation of brand new consoles, let alone on what is, I believe, going to be a launch title for the Xbox Series X, which is undeniably the more powerful system compared to the PlayStation 5, at least just at the hardware level. The Xbox Series X is more powerful, so obviously people were expecting a huge leap in graphical fidelity, and stuff like that, and I think it's just, I don't think there's any way to slice it. This is disappointing, and of course you've got, the fans out there that are saying, like, oh, this is, they're still going to continue working on it, and the build is a few weeks old and everything. I'm like, yeah, but they're a few months away from the game coming out. They might do a few things to improve the graphics and performance and add some like polish, but I think at this point in the game, they're really just kind of finishing things off, fixing bugs and stuff like that, and really getting this game ready to be released. Maybe they'll have a beta or something between now and then. But as far as the graphics are concerned, I'm convinced that what we are seeing right here is more or less what we're going to get. Maybe we'll get a small improvement in graphical fidelity. Now, after all of this backlash, 343 a few days ago actually issued a statement over on Halo Waypoint. So there's a few highlights out of that, which I want to read for you right now. First off, they started out by saying that there are two key areas being debated around the community: overall art style and visual fidelity. And obviously you can see where they're going from here is that they're taking the art style route, that this is an art style for the reason that the game looks flat and has like zero texture resolution and just looks like crap. And that's just a shitty explanation in my personal opinion. I don't think it really works in a game like this. I mean, for something like, say, Borderlands, that's a cel-shaded art style, and when you stick with a cel-shaded art style, you are going to find yourself extremely limited in terms of what you can do graphically with like lighting and reflections and stuff. It doesn't really lend itself to stuff like that so much. And that, I definitely feel, is grounded in that art style. But I don't think there's any reason why this game couldn't have, fantastic reflections and lighting and, great 4K textures and everything, and why it needs to look like the character models need to look like shit. There is no reason for art style for that to tie into this game, even though they are definitely taking that route, as they continued on to say that we decided to shift back towards the legacy aesthetics that defined the original trilogy. With Halo Infinite, we're returning to a more classic art style. And no, they didn't return to a classic art style. Halo 5 still looked like a Halo game. It just looked better than the old games. To put out a game that has lower textures, worse lighting, all of that stuff is not an art style decision. That is a clear dumbing down of the graphics. And I'll get to that why in just a minute with my theory on this. But they continued on to say that this translates to a more vibrant palette, cleaner models, which they even put cleaner in quotes, and by cleaner, what they really mean is muddy, shitty textures. So cleaner models and objects with less noise, though it doesn't mean less detail, but it actually does. While we appreciate this may not be everyone's personal preference, we stand by this decision and are happy to see it resonating with so many fans around the world. Yeah, it's resonating with them, all right, in a negative way. It's not a good resonation in any way whatsoever. It looks like crap. They then go on to say that the second theme being discussed involves visual fidelity. Negative feedback in this area includes comments around characters and objects appearing flat, simplistic, and plastic-like. Lighting feels dull and flat, and object popping. So they said we've read your comments and blah, 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 PR spin. And they then go on to say that we do have work to do to address some of these areas and raise the level of fidelity and overall presentation for the final game. The build used to run the campaign demo was a work in progress from several weeks ago, with a variety of graphical elements and game systems still being finished and polished. So, that's like the big fanboy defense right now, is that the build was a few weeks old and, they're still working on some of those things. And granted, they might, bump up the visual fidelity on this, like maybe, let's say 5 to 10% if I'm being generous. But to say that this is going to somehow look like a completely next-gen game compared to what we saw on July 23rd, I think is just absolute poppycock. There's no way they are getting this game to look like what I think most people have built up in their minds as a next-generation graphical title for the Xbox Series X in just a few months' time. I think if you think that, you're probably delusional, but I'd like to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Now, around a few days ago when this statement was also put out, we also got confirmation over on Twitter, and this is where I really get into my theory as to why these graphics are crap. So a few days ago, they posted on the main Halo Twitter after rumors were surfacing. They basically came out and confirmed it and said, Halo is for everyone. We can confirm Halo Infinite multiplayer will be free to play, will support 120 FPS on the Xbox Series X, and more details will be shared later. So there's two main pieces of information there. The fact that it's going to be free to play could be a complete different topic for another video. I don't think that has anything to do with why the graphics are being dumbed down in this game, but I do think that it's going to open up a whole other can of worms with microtransactions and all that stuff. They've said that they're not going to have loot boxes and stuff, but I think it's undeniable this game is going to be absolutely riddled with microtransactions for the multiplayer if it is free to play it for everyone, and then people are basically going to be paying $60 just to get access to a campaign and maybe like a firefight mode. I'm not sure if they're doing one of those or not. I did also hear rumors about a battle royale, but I don't think that's confirmed yet, but I wouldn't be surprised at all. But that would probably be free to play as well, like Warzone. So yeah, the multiplayer is free to play. I think that's a terrible idea. I think it's a disservice to people that are paying $60 for the game, because they're just using that as an excuse to further monetize that via microtransactions. So, as I said, that's a topic for another video. The real thing I wanted to talk about here is the fact that it's going to run at 120 frames per second on the Xbox Series X, something that we have absolutely never seen before on a console, and it is going to be one of the key features of the Xbox Series X, even though we haven't heard really a ton about it up until this point. I believe this is the first game to confirm that they're going to be running at 120 frames per second. I think you have it right there. That is the reason the graphics look like crap. It's because they want to hit that 120 FPS. Think about it. This is a launch title for the Xbox Series X. This is going to be one of the main reasons people buy that system over the PS5, even though the PS5, I think, has undeniably better exclusives. This would be a reason people buy an Xbox Series X over a PlayStation 5 maybe is to get that 120 frames per second, something that many console gamers have never experienced who aren't also PC gamers as well. And I think they are basically using this to sell those consoles. They're like, hey, we have this feature that the PlayStation 5, I can't remember actually if the PS5 is doing 120 FPS or not, but the Xbox Series X is, and they want to sell that feature on their consoles. They want to give people a reason to buy the Xbox Series X, and then they want to have a game ready day one that can take advantage of that feature, because for people on consoles, they're often lucky if they can get a game that runs at a good 60 frames per second. A lot of times they're stuck with 30 frames per second on many titles out there, although there's, in the last generation there was a lot more 60 FPS titles than we had seen in previous gens. 60 FPS is still just barely becoming commonplace when it comes to the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4. And now with this next gen coming out the gate and having a game that runs at 120 FPS for gamers that can take advantage of that and have like a 120 hertz monitor or a proper 120 hertz television that actually does 120 hertz, I think they are going to be absolutely blown away by how smooth 120 FPS is. And I think Microsoft is banking on that to sell consoles. So I really do personally think that that is why we are seeing these shitty graphics in Halo Infinite, is to be able to hit that frame rate target. Because if they were improving the visual fidelity and stuff, I don't think they'd be able to run it as a high of a frame rate. And maybe there'll be an option, when they get the consoles, maybe if you want to have higher visual fidelity or a higher resolution, then you'll be able to run the game at 60 frames per second. I would hope that would be an option for people that want to take advantage of it, since I don't think most console gamers have displays that can natively support 120 hertz or anything like that. Most TVs, a lot of the older TVs anyway, they have like a pseudo fake, like ultra smoothing option that is not really high refresh rate. Although some newer TVs, they've got FreeSync, G-Sync, and actual 120 hertz support at 4K. So, those newer TVs could definitely help also with selling along these consoles too. Or you could see a lot of console gamers this next generation switching over to gaming monitors to actually take advantage of 120 FPS. But yeah, let me know down in the comments below. That's really my main theory as to why they're doing this, is to hit that 120 FPS to sell consoles. So I want to hear your guys' feedback down in the comments below on this, what you think of the visuals in Halo Infinite, and do you agree, do you disagree with my theory on why the game looks like a bag of turd. I'm going to go ahead and get out of here though, guys. I hope to see you in the next one. Leave a like if you enjoyed this, dislike if you didn't, and I'll see you next time. As I said, ta-ra.